Hi, and welcome to our video covering the collaborative tools available to you in 3DEXPERIENCE. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Most of the collaboration tools that you're going to be using are simply going to be these tools available on your dashboard as widgets. Now, most of these have been covered in previous videos, so I'm not going to be going into a lot of detail on a lot of the tools available here, but we'll go ahead and give you a brief overview on each one anyway. These first four widgets here we cover in our dashboard management video, so make sure you go and check that video if you need a refresher on any of these widgets. Now the 3D space widget, this one up here, we should be pretty familiar with. But let's go ahead and review the built-in 3D play feature available with this widget. So I'm going to go ahead and expand it. And make sure you remember that that is an option with any of these widgets. You can expand any one of these. And let's go ahead and let's pull up the 3D play viewer for this assembly. Now 3D play, which is the viewer we're looking at right here, is simply a good way to get viewing rights to your parts and your assemblies without having to actually launch them within any of the native apps on your computer. This makes it very convenient to simply pull up and discuss parts of your assembly as you're meeting with your team, or if you just need to get a view of different parts as you're moving through this process. Now the view we're looking up here is always going to be the updated view of the assembly anytime someone's saved that assembly in CATIA. So that keeps us on track here. Now one thing that we may not have shown before is in this tools section here. Now we already know that we can do a section view, we can take measurements or do an explode of the different parts in our assembly, but the tool here at the end is one we want to show you now. This is the annotation tool. This tool allows me to make notes on my assembly as I'm discussing it with my team. So I can come in here with the marker tool, I can draw a circle around one of these parts, and notice it automatically formats that into a nice clean circle, just because it knows that it's hard to do with a mouse. I can come in here and I can erase any of those notations that I've made. I can come in here and make comments as well. Make comments like that. I can come in from the side view, make another comment. And we can see those annotations show up. Now a thing to keep in mind with any of these annotations is that they're designed to help you as you go through a particular meeting, a particular discussion with your group. These annotations therefore aren't going to save in any way after I leave the viewer, but I can make them in here anyway and they help me discuss the part. Another nice feature is with any of these annotations that I've made, you notice as I turn it away from that view, that annotation is going to disappear from view. There's actually a tool in here designed to help us keep track of those views and simply shuffle through them. So if I come in here, it's this tour button here, and it's just going to jump me between those two viewpoints for which I have annotations. This is very convenient because you can come in here before a meeting, take some notes, put in some annotations on the assembly, and then simply cycle through them as you discuss them in the meeting. Alright, so that's the first tool. That's the 3D play tool. Let's go ahead and jump to the next one. We're going to get to 3D swim later, but I do want to jump down and remind everyone of the web page reader app, which you can find right here. Web page reader right there. That will allow me to import a document so I can work on it with my team. Now this is a Google Sheets form, which allows me to actually edit this within the window of 3DEXPERIENCE. It's a good way of keeping those documents available for you so that you can work on them together as a team. Now one comment I need to make on this, many large engineering companies have security protocols in place that don't allow them to access some cloud-based software, which in many cases will include Google Docs, Google Sheets, and things like this. So if your program is using your dashboard as a way for the judges to come in and view your content, you're going to want to be careful that in the dashboard that you submit, you're not using any one of these documents, but maybe download it as a PDF and upload that PDF onto your dashboard instead. Now down here at the bottom, we have three other widgets that we added here as part of the project management video. I just want to look at this one here called collaborative tasks. That's discussed in more detail in that video. But as we went through and created the different tasks that would be necessary to complete this project, it automatically uploads those tasks into this view here, where we can assign those tasks to different members of the team. We can update the finish date, we can update the duration that we expect that task to take, and the maturity of this task. We can do that in this window here, or I can simply grab a task and move it into ready, move it into in work. And then on these that are already underway, we can come in here and change the completion percentage for any one of those tasks as well. This is the fastest way to keep track of the individual tasks that your members have to complete, and you can actually see them move from left to right as you work through the project. It'll allow you to keep a good eye on the progress of your project and note any situations, these ones marked in red here, where we've fallen behind. Great. All right, and that covers the widgets that we can see here. Let's move into a few of the other tools. The first one is the 3D Messenger app, which is this little bubble located in the bottom corner here. This is essentially an instant messaging app that allows you to stay in contact with other members of your team who are working within the 3DEXPERIENCE platform at the same time. But what I may not have pointed out entirely is that this 3D messaging app is available within any one of the apps that you'll be accessing, and is actually even more powerful than simply instant messaging. So you can already see here that I have access to this app on the dashboard, but if I pull up here, I'm going to open up 3D Swim, which we'll be covering a little bit later, as one of the web-based apps that you have access to. And there it comes. And now if I come up here to the top and simply click on my profile, I can see messaging here. Select that, and there's that same messaging app right down there in the corner. So this is going to help you to keep in contact with different members of your team. You can be working in the various tools here within 3DEXPERIENCE. Now that's 3D messaging in the web apps. Let me show you the power that that tool has in the native app. So I'm going to open up CATIA here, and we're going to go ahead and launch the messaging app within the native installed app here. To do that, it's the same basic process. Come up here to my profile, and I'm actually in this case going to go to my status and sign in. This is signing me into the Messenger app. And there it comes on the side here, and now all I have to do is find a person. I'm just going to find myself. There I am. And I can go ahead and open up a chat box, and there you see it down there on the bottom. I can send messages to my teammates as I'm working in here in 3DEXPERIENCE. But we even push it a little bit further than that. You notice when I opened that Messenger app, it actually popped up this kind of little window here around my assembly here. And what that's doing is it's preparing me to do something called a co-review. And essentially what that means is it's screen sharing within 3DEXPERIENCE. So if I were to activate this with another member who's also online, it would allow the two of us to look at the same assembly, watch as the presenter, or the leader as we call it in here, moves the assembly around, makes their changes, does different edits within the assembly, and we can use the messenger here to exchange information and directions as we move through this process. We can also get in here a little bit more involved and come to the annotation tool here, which will allow either of us to come in and point out certain features, certain items that we want the other individual that we're working with to focus on. So this pushes even more what we can do as we collaborate on a project. Now, simply put, this also goes a little bit beyond simply being able to view the design at the same time. Now, in order to keep a handle on the actual edits that go on in this window, we need to create one leader who is actually able to come in here and edit the design and shift between the different apps up here at the top and make actual changes. However, one of the features available in CoDesign is a button up here that will actually allow you to switch that leadership role between the two people watching this co-review, which means that you will actually be able to shift that role back and forth and work collaboratively on this same model. By way of a warning on that, I want to point out that it's an asynchronous viewing system, which means that if one person makes a change on this model, which means if the viewer, if the observer were to do something, make an annotation or something on this model, it may take a little bit of time to show up on the leader's side. So keep an eye on that. I'd also like to point out, and this is very important, that the two of you are looking at the same model, have the same model open at the same time, which means that there's a possibility of two save states being created for the same duration of time. If you were to create these two different save states for the same period of time, it would cause some problems, and a lot of those changes would very likely be lost. So what you want to do as you're working on this model, as you're doing this co-review, make sure only the leader actually saves the model at the end of the co-review. The other individuals, however many there are, who are simply observing, should simply quit without saving. Any changes that they made during the process will be saved when the leader goes in to make that save. So make sure you keep an eye on that as you exit out of your model. Alright, and that covers the 3D messaging. I'm going to go ahead and close these windows. Notice the co-review window didn't shut down when I closed that side window, or this one down here. It simply became bigger, so I can walk through and close any unnecessary windows to give me a little bit more working space. Alright, now last in this video what we want to cover is we want to go into a little bit of detail into this 3D Swim app that I opened earlier. And as I've shown in some of the other videos, there's several ways to get access to it. I can simply open the 3D Swim app and it'll open in a new tab up here at the top. I can pull it onto my dashboard as a widget, and you notice I can actually scroll through my different communities and pick the community or the group that I want to be viewing in this window. I can also maximize that to get the full functionality of 3D Swim right here on my dashboard. Or I can also access it with this Communities button here at the top and get a side view right here of my different communities. But that's just getting access to the app. Let's go ahead and jump into this tab and let's walk through what you'll be seeing. So when you open 3D Swim, probably the first thing you're going to be seeing is simply some information from this Getting Started community. You're automatically added to that community when you get access to 3DEXPERIENCE. And this contains some posts with some information about how 3D Swim works and some of the tools that you have access to within 3D Swim. So take some time, take a look at those. But as you get into using 3D Swim, you're going to want to add some communities of your own and join some of the others that may have been created by the administrators of your project, like a Q&A, question and answer group, just like this one. Now in 3D Swim, those groups are called communities. I've used that term a few times now. And each community is going to have a specific function that it's meant to serve. Let's go ahead and create a community for our group to collaborate in. So I'm going to click on this My Communities button here. And then we're going to come up here. It's going to show me the two communities I have access to. I'm just going to hit this plus and give it a title. I'm just going to say My Team Project. Down here I can add a description. And go ahead and hit create. And this is going to take me to the edit page of this community that's going to allow me to do some more in-depth changes to the group. First things first, I could come up here and I could change that little profile image to whatever I want that to be, change the description. I'm set as the main owner, which means I'm going to have the ability to come in here and change these sort of features. The visibility of my community is set to secret. That means that no one's going to be able to find this community unless they're specifically invited by an owner. Private would simply mean that they could find the community but would need to request access, and public means it would be open for anyone to come and join. Moving down, we have features, questions, ideas, surveys, and wiki. These are different types of posts that people can make within this community. I'm just going to allow all of them to stay active. It also gives me this checkbox referring to contributors. Now within 3D Swim there are three types of access. There are owners who are able to actually change the settings of a community, authors who are able to post certain types of items but aren't able to change those settings, and contributors who are really only by default given access to read the information on the page. Coming down, I can set their statistics available from the community. I'm just going to leave that on owners. And down here we have idea status management. I'm going to come back and talk about this in a little bit more detail later on. But just to be brief, there are 3 categories here. I can set a name for each of those categories, give them a color, and decide where they fit within this kind of classification structure here. I can even add 4th or 5th statuses or categories to this process as well. But again, I'll come back to that a little bit later. Alright, now I didn't actually make any changes here, so there's nothing for me to apply, but that community is now active. The only thing that remains for me to do is to make sure that there are members who have access to this community. So I'm going to come down and hit that button. I'm shown here as the main owner, and I could come in here and add other individuals to this page, make sure my whole team has access. Now again, you can see this kind of breakdown. There are authors who make posts, there are owners who can actually edit the settings, and there are contributors who are only supposed to be able to read posts, depending on how you set up those options. So I would simply come in here and search for a team member in any one of these. It would help me find that team member, and I could add them to the page. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. You're going to want to keep going through that process until you have your entire team added to the page. They'll get a notification that shows them that they have access to the community, and then they can come and join up here. But let's go ahead and jump to the community so we can see what tools are available to us here. Alright, now this is our main collaboration tool, and I'm going to show you why that is. Up here at the top we can add any sort of post that we want to be visible to our team. So I can come up here, I can make it simply a post, which is just going to be basically a title and some content. I can also come down here and I can attach media, pictures, videos, whatever, to this post. I'm going to go ahead and publish that, and that will just pop up in my feed here. Now a post is the simplest type of information that we can put up here. It's essentially just a comment or maybe even a discussion that we want to have with the group that we can post up here, and individuals can come in here and make comments on that post. But we have a lot of even more interesting tools up here. I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to post a question now. Now obviously we're using this to seek a specific answer, so how do I do something? And again, I can add in some more content down here, post a picture, go ahead and publish that. Now if I click on this drop down, you see save as draft. So if I'm still working on a more complicated entry, I can save it as a draft and come back to it. I'm going to go ahead and publish that. And the nice thing about questions is that they can show whether or not they've been answered. So you notice it's in red right here, which is indicating that this question hasn't found an acceptable answer. If I come down here, I can post that answer and add that to the question. Now that doesn't automatically turn from red to green because we still have to come back. Whoever asks the question needs to come back and determine whether or not they've actually found the solution to their question. And they can do that by simply coming up here, clicking on that red icon, and then they're going to say validate answer on the answer that they like. I can click that, it's going to turn green, showing that it's been answered, and it's going to highlight that accepted answer in green as well. So those can show up and those can differentiate the different kinds of information that you have available within this group as well. Coming back up here again, we have some other options. We can post simply a photo, a video, some sort of media from our desktop with a title on it as well. Now around this point, I want to address a common question that we get, which is, well, why not just use texting or email or some other software? And you could definitely do that. But the biggest reason, beyond some of the other functionality I'm about to show you, is simply the fact that these are actually designated posts, which makes it a little bit easier for me to find the material that I'm actually looking for. Notice content other than posts actually shows up in the sidebar over here, which allows me to differentiate between them. By clicking on that, I can go straight to the Just Questions section and only look at the questions that have been asked, and again, very quickly find out which of them have accepted answers. Going back, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit the browser's back button. Let's look at some of the more complex things we can add to a community. First thing is a survey, and it's a fairly straightforward process. I can give this a title, We can post a start date and an end date for the survey. One thing you will likely want to do is check this box to make sure you have access to the results as soon as they're available, as soon as someone has contributed to the survey. And then you can come down here and add questions. And at the bottom here are answers. I can add additional answers. By default, it gives me 2 options. I'll just put in some here. We'll publish that to the page. And now any individual could come in and take this. So I can come in here, answer 1, and hit save. And immediately, because I checked that box, I have access to this. I can see that 1 person voted for answer 1 over answer 2. Notice again, as I go back, surveys now pop up in the sidebar. Alright, that's great. Next one up is a wiki page. And the wiki page, again, would get saved on the side here. But the wiki page is a little bit different from the other posts in that it doesn't show up in the simple list of posts going down the page. The wiki is different in that it's meant to be viewed as a separate page that we can actually open. And this allows me to give some hierarchy to the pages in here. So I can come up here and say rocket assembly process. I can add some content. Maybe this is an introduction. I can come in here and attach media. I can format the paragraph, change it into headings, bulleted or numbered lists, format the page however I want to do that, and then I can publish. And as soon as I have that, I can start adding pages into my hierarchy. So I have the rocket assembly process, so I'm going to add a page located underneath that assembly process kind of title page. And this could simply be structure assembly, step 1, etc. I can publish that as well. And then if I come back up here to the rocket assembly process and add another page, these will be located side by side. So maybe this is propulsion testing sequence. And publish that as well. And there you can see that these are located on the same level in my hierarchy as that rocket assembly process. It's simply depending on which of these I have selected at the time. Depends on which one I'm showing. This is a great way to format some reference materials for your team. So you can come back and check perhaps on proper procedure, maybe some role assignments and some information that way, and really create just a wiki to help keep your team better organized. Now after these are published, I could even come in and make comments on a certain page. Maybe it's a recommendation for a change that needs to be made or something to that effect that you can do as well. Let's jump back again. Notice again, the wiki page did not show up in my feed here, but it is here on the right. So I can always come back over and jump into that wiki page and view all that information. By default, they'll all start with a root page that gives some basic instructions on how to use the wiki. So make sure you take a look at that as well. Alright, now we can move on to the last thing that I didn't show you. I skipped on purpose, and it's this idea option here. I'm going to go ahead and select that, and we can now put in an idea. The way that ideas differ from regular posts is that it's going to allow me to use that section or status image that we looked at before to actually show my ideas moving from just an initial thought into an actual concept that we're taking a serious look at to something that we're actually planning on putting into our design and beyond. So I'm going to go ahead and give this something like tractor propeller, and down here are the reasons why. And I can publish that as well. And when I do that, it's going to show up in the sidebar again as ideas. Notice it automatically produced that kind of status image down here. Let's go ahead and click on this, and we can examine this in more detail. So this status image up here at the top allows me to track the progress of individual ideas as they show up as these little dots within this hierarchy. So this is a great way to go about brainstorming with your group. You could actually, while sitting in a meeting, you could add these ideas or have everyone, as they disperse, have them think of certain ideas, put them in the new idea category, and then as you come together as a team, you could go through the individual points that are up here. And I'm going to add another one. Let's call it a pusher propeller. And down here, publish that as well. And as I publish that, that will also show up in this new idea category here. And then, as my team goes on and we discuss the ideas, as we kind of decide which ones we want to take forward, I can then come into any one of these and we can move them forward. So I'm going to click on the icon just like I did with the question, and now I can just click on the new section. So it's moved from a new idea, just kind of a thought someone had, into an actual concept that we're looking at. It's even going to ask me why I've decided to move it to concept, and I can just say team consensus. Really anything I want to in that box. And I can go ahead and add that, and now it's showing when it moved from a new idea into a concept. And as I go back to the ideas, we can now see that that idea has now moved forward and now has that advanced status. So that is how the ideas process works. I would highly recommend taking a look at this as you move towards the brainstorming stage of your project. It's an excellent tool to put into practice during that process so you can actually see where your ideas come from and how they advanced into your actual plan for your project. Alright, and with that, we have essentially covered 3D Swim. Go ahead and take a look at these tools. They're very useful. This is a great way to simply keep track of the communications you've had with your team, be able to go back and look at the decisions that you made as a team and remember why those decisions were made, where they came from, what the reasoning was. This is an excellent way to keep track of that information. And as an added bonus, 3D Swim works essentially like a miniaturized social media platform within the 3DEXPERIENCE program. You can even come in here and look at some of these Discover communities, some other communities that are available that are there to allow you to communicate with some other users of 3DEXPERIENCE, see how else 3DEXPERIENCE is being used, and get excited about some of the things that you might be able to do. As a final point in here, if you want to search for any specific information in here, all you have to do is come up here to this search bar and just use that generic search bar. Since you're within the bounds of 3D Swim, you have access to this search bar, which generally will look through all of the information available to you. It's only going to focus on the posts that are within the community that I'm looking at right now. So if I just come up here and say propeller, I can search specifically for those posts that mention the propeller. And there they are. Tractor propeller, pusher propeller, they're both ideas I can see with that icon, and I could select the one that I want. So that will help you sort through the posts that are available in here as well. Alright, and with that, we have covered our collaboration tools. We hope that they're helpful to you, and we're excited to see what you do with them. Thanks.